Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello everyone, I am Faraz Naqvi from Institute of Regional Studies, Islamabad. I am leading the Iran program here at the Institute. And today the topic of our webinar is Iran's cyber security challenges and response. It is quite a pertinent topic in this regard that Iran is basically accused of fostering cyber attacks across the oil facilities of Saudi Arabia, as well as many installations on Israeli and US-based facilities. On the other hand, Iran is also the victim of cyber attacks, specifically from the Israeli side, and specifically on the installation of its nuclear sites at the area of Natanz. In 2010, Iran also became the victim of a cyber attack launched by the US-based security officials by the name Sputnik. So it is basically on both ways, that Iran is also being the victim, as well as Iran is also being accused of playing the cyber warfare. As you all know, that cyber warfare is a non-traditional sort of security warfare that has been quite in the radar for quite some time. And as we are shifting from from traditional security to non-traditional security, it is quite important that we should discuss and analyze the emerging scenario in which the non-traditional security aspects and non-traditional tool of warfare would get prominence. So in this regard, to have discussion on it, we have invited two eminent speakers. One is from Iran by the name Dr. Syed Abdi. He is the assistant professor and the director of Iran Cybersecurity Center. Hopefully, he'll be joining us soon. While the other speaker is Syed Muhammad Ali. He is a well-known and well-known international policy analyst who has appeared in Al Jazeera, in CNN, BBC, and all across the TV platforms, both nationally and internationally. He was former director of CPSD, a Karachi-based think tank, as well as the former director of CAS, an Islamabad-based think tank. So I'll start with Syed Muhammad Ali. So, sir, over to you, sir. The floor is yours to enlighten us on the an overall cyber security space, as well as the Iranian Iranian superiority or Iranian expertise on cyberspace, as well as their launching of warfare.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Thank you so much. First of all, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much. I'm really honored that the leadership of Institute of Regional Studies, one of the most well-respected Pakistani think tank around the world, and particularly to Ambassador Nadeem Riaz, President IAS, for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts on this important contemporary subject. What I'll do is that I'll structure my talk in four parts. First off, since the Iranian perspective might be following my talk, I'll give an overall perspective on the global significance of cybersecurity, followed by its identifying its peculiar nature, its significance, its strategic significance, and also what measures Iran and Pakistan have taken. But I'll also, in the last part, recommend a few measures that both countries can consider to improve their security in the cyber domain, and perhaps build some modus operandi for further cooperation for mutual benefit. So first off, in terms of global significance, ladies and gentlemen, cyber world is a ubiquitous and pervasive domain, which is driving the fourth industrial revolution. Almost 2/3 of the humanity in this planet are connected socially, politically, culturally, economically, and technologically, thanks to information technology in the cyber world, in the cyberspace, which transcends nation states' territorial boundaries and the traditional forms of statecraft. So it is very important. And secondly, the emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, Bitcoin, and dark web are rapidly influencing the identity, security, prosperity, and stability of the entire international system beyond territorial boundaries of 193 states which are on this planet. So cyber domain is used for producing, sharing, and consuming information or disinformation to promote a state's own values or to influence the values of other states, and also to promote own interests or to deny others the pursuit of power, wealth, and influence. So in terms of industrial context, it's over $1 trillion industry whose services are available not just to states, but also to multinational organizations, non-state actors, political parties, NGOs, criminals, and the underworld. So, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, data today is perhaps the most valuable asset and commodity in the contemporary world, far more precious and valuable than oil or even gold. And IT companies which are offering its services to all these clients that I have identified are the richest and most influential multinational corporations in the world today. To quote Steve Bannon, the chief campaign manager of former US President Trump, he said, if you want to fundamentally change society, you have to break it down into pieces, which allows you to remold it according to your vision of a new society, unquote. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, due to its multidimensional, deep, and instantaneous impact, the cyberspace has become the central domain for the accelerating hybrid warfare, which is a worldwide phenomenon. Pakistan's permanent representative, therefore, aptly made a very timely statement during the first substantive session of the open-ended working group on security of and in the use of information and communication technologies, which was delivered on 1st December 2021. And I quote that Pakistan is firmly committed to the principles of UN Charter, particularly of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and non-interference in the internal affairs of states, which form the fundamental basis of global cyber governance that can help ensure peaceful and responsible use of ICT and preventing cyberspace from becoming a realm of conflict, which is also one of the most critical challenges of our time. Therefore, international community must work together to protect cybersecurity and maintain international peace. Also, disinformation negatively affects human rights, fundamental freedoms, and erodes the basis for international cooperation, unquote. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the geopolitical significance of cybersecurity is enormous and exceptional. Why? Because of two fundamental reasons. Number one, cyber space growth is a global and accelerating phenomena. But the developed world is more vulnerable due to the heavy technology dependence in all aspects of security, culture, economy, industry, and society. But the developed world also has more human, technological, and financial resources to promote their values and interests, and also have a superior ability to exploit and influence other less resourceful and technology dependent nation states. The second point is that although the developing countries have significant social, economic, and security structures which do not primarily depend on the cyberspace, but they are more vulnerable than the developed world in terms of those structures which are running the cyber structures, policies, and organizations in the developing countries, because the hardware and the software on which the developing countries depend and rely are primarily the origin is in the developed countries. So that creates an external dependence and a strategic vulnerability. So now coming to the strategic significance, I think cybersecurity is perhaps the most significant technology to emerge in human history. Why? Because unlike the kinetic tools of statecraft and warfare, it allows a state and non-state actor to simultaneously influence the political, economic, and military dynamics together. In terms of the political dynamics, it enables technologically advanced states to influence the political stability, mass mobilization, and challenge the distribution of power within other nation states in order to influence its social contract. In terms of economy, it also provides a very important tool to disrupt, degrade, or deny economic activity, financial and banking system, and commercial and other processes affect the influence, investor confidence and market sentiment. More specifically, in the military realm, it is used for four purposes. Number one, intelligence gathering. Number two, targeting of the military capabilities. Number three, influencing the political will of a nation and the command control systems. And fourthly, it has emerged as a premier instrument of the non-contact warfare as well. So cyber domain offers 7 very diverse and major strategic capabilities to a nation state or a non-state actor. It allows an entity to disrupt, deny, degrade, divide, dissuade, discourage, and eventually also destroy the influence, the wealth, the capability and command control and communication system of other countries. So what has happened? What does this all mean? This means that the monopoly of power, not just of force or violence, the monopoly of power of state is being technologically challenged in the cyber world far more than ever before, because state is now sharing this cyberspace not just with other states but with other multinational organizations, with NGOs, with non-state actors, private contractors, criminals, and so on and so forth. Therefore, the challenge posed, ladies and gentlemen, by the cyber warfare is unique, grave, complex, and is swiftly developing across all domains of statecraft and affects the national ways, means, and method of life of all nation states. Now, coming to the Iranian example, Iran, primarily for the geopolitical reasons and also for its geostrategic location, is a major player in the cyber world for both offensive and defensive purposes. It, according to open source information, it received more than 1.4 million cyber attacks last year, and it ranged from as critical as Mr. Faraz Naqvi earlier pointed out, the Stuxnet virus, which badly damaged the centrifuge facility of the Iranian nuclear program, but also subsequently, more recently, it has been used to target the Iranian oil industry, and also more recently, its steel industry as well. That is the direct non-kinetic attack. But in addition, it is also used for mass mobilization and creating a perception in terms of psychological warfare and information warfare, influencing the public perception and creating a discord between the state and society. So, but Iran, according to Western sources, also has developed significant cyber capabilities for both offensive and defensive purposes, which it has employed against both its regional and global adversaries. I'll not go into more detail on that, but I think let me come to the more interesting part of my talk, which I'm sure will be of more interest to the audience here. I think when we look at Pakistan's experience and perspective regarding cybersecurity and Iran's cyber experience, I think there are some areas which offer opportunities for collaboration and possible cooperation. And I want to highlight the recent geopolitical developments in the Middle East further increase the significance of these fleeting opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, the Quad 2.0 and the Abrahamic Accord offers an important opportunity to both Iran and Pakistan to build greater trust and confidence to meet common challenges, particularly in the cyber world. Due to the multidimensional impact, the cyber world has become central to hybrid war. Quad brings India and Israel very close as part of a formal and major regional security architecture. And while Iran has security concerns in the cyber domain from Tel Aviv, Pakistan also has serious concerns about the close Indian security cooperation with Israel. Both India and Israel have developed and employed major cyber capabilities and are expanding and deepening this close bilateral cooperation, particularly after Indian Prime Minister Modi's July 2017 visit of Israel, and an agreement in this regard was also signed between India and Israel during Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's India visit in 2018. Later, Indian National Cybersecurity Coordinator, Lieutenant General Rajesh Pan, also visited Israel in June 2019 to participate in the Cyber Week. An agreement on global cybersecurity cooperation was signed between Israel's Director General of National Cyber Directorate, INCD, Vigal Una, and India's Ambassador to Israel, Sanjeev Singla, on July 16, 2020. The Israeli officials told Indian official news agency, Press Trust of India, that Israel can contribute from its experience and also benefit from the vast Indian cyber experience, while the Indian ambassador stressed the need to expand the cybersecurity cooperation between India and India, which has been earlier emphasized by the prime ministers of both countries. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, according to Pakistan's regulatory authority, PTA, Pakistan Telecom Authority, Pakistan is among the 10 most targeted countries in the world in the cyber warfare. Pakistan faced more than 1 million cyber attacks last year of various kinds, mainly from India. So I think there is an opportunity that Pakistan and Iran should consider to share the experiences for common benefit in terms of enhancing our cyber security. The October 29 cyber attack on the National Bank of Pakistan and recent cyber attack on Iranian oil and steel industries once again reminds us of the complexity of cyberspace and the enormous psychological, economic, and social impact of cyber attacks, which are increasing both in frequency and intensity against both Iran and Pakistan. Therefore, Iran and Pakistan have a common interest in building greater bilateral cooperation, and cyber security could be an important starting point, initially through academic exchanges and public discourse through think tanks, media, and academia, to identify common interests and explore common ideas, and also identify common solutions to similar threats and challenges. I will not spend much time on the measures that Pakistan has taken, but it is important for the Iranian audience to know that Pakistan, despite resource constraint, has done remarkably well in terms of investing in the human resource development, infrastructure, and cybersecurity in a very limited span of time. So let me just briefly identify some of the things that Pakistan has done, because this will help me build the case for further collaboration between Pakistan and Iran in the last part of my talk. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan, according to PTA, Pakistan Telecom Authority, is a developing country, but it has shown enormous rate of growth in the cyberspace, with almost 193 million mobile subscribers and 117 million broadband users. So that means practically 88% of Pakistanis use mobile phones, and 53% of them use internet. We have 300,000 IT professionals, 2,000 registered IT companies, 13 software technology parks, and according to Pakistan Vision 2025 and Digital Policy of Pakistan 2018, we hope that the current market capitalization and investment in the IT sector will reach $20 billion by 2025. Right now, we are expecting a $3.5 billion export, which we hope will achieve the target of $5 billion by the end of the current fiscal year. So this has been obviously reinforced by several initiatives, such as the Prime Minister's laptop scheme, followed by launching of Digital Pakistan initiative, which aimed at increasing the connectivity, providing enhanced digital infrastructure, encouraging innovation and entrepreneurship. Several governments have provided an enabling environment to the IT sector by different steps and measures that they have taken, such as the Nadra database, land automation records, Safe City project, online tax return system, followed by the recent COVID crisis also provided a great opportunity for Pakistan's IT industry to offer technological solutions for e-governance and sustaining business and education processes. Lastly, Pakistan's National Cybersecurity Policy 2021 was approved in July last year for data safety and privacy of local users. Therefore, the policy mandates a central body to oversee implementation, remove bureaucratic hurdles, and carry out capacity building for changing landscape of cyber threats. And I hope this will be of interest to our Iranian friends, that there are areas in which they can benefit from Pakistan's experience. Also, more recently, Pakistan has developed National Response Center for Cybercrime, which offers computer forensics, mobile forensics, video forensics, image forensics, audio forensics, and network forensics. Moreover, National Initiative for Artificial Intelligence and Security has also been undertaken, which aims to build Pakistan's technology industry and industry, technology, and education by bringing them together and synergizing knowledge, wealth, and experience. Moreover, PakCert, Presidential Initiative for Artificial Intelligence and Computing, National Center for Cybersecurity, Skills for Hunarmand Pakistan, Kamyab Jawan, and National Vocational and Technical Training, and a cybersecurity auditing and evaluation labs are some of the additional steps in this regard. Now coming to the last part of my presentation, which is the way forward and some policy recommendations. I will not spend much time on the national level recommendations, which are briefly, but just flag them that there are political measures, legislative measures, technical measures, skill development, and greater international exposure and intellectual collaboration with the other countries, followed by greater funding by HEC to incentivize scholarships and grants for research in this field. But more interestingly, since the topic is related to Iran's cybersecurity, I'll focus more in the next 5 minutes on the international level policy recommendations, which I hope can be considered. Number one, joint ventures. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan has 193 million mobile and 117 million internet users. And Iran has 127 million mobile users and 72 million internet users. So there is significant prospect and space for collaboration in telecom, IT, and cybersecurity sectors. which will provide more opportunities to the youth-driven societies of Iran and Pakistan, and both these neighboring countries can come closer in terms of industrial, academic, and scientific linkages and collaboration. PTCL, I was talking to its leadership earlier in the morning before coming here, has data centers which are tier 4 compliant and one of the leading and most respected data centers. And they are also tier 3 certified. So these can also offer services to Iran. Incubation centers in both countries can also benefit from the sharing of ideas, skills, knowledge, and experience. And we would look forward to perhaps the prospect of Iranian IT companies investing in Pakistan's software parks, which I'm sure will benefit both countries and provide opportunities to the youth of both countries. So in addition, in terms of emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, data regulation framework, information sharing, and privacy protection, I think there is also much scope for benefiting from each other's legislative processes and enforcement mechanisms so that we can improve our cyber governance system. Moreover, I think cyber exercises of our cybersecurity departments could be considered so that they can benefit from each other's experience of countering similar cyber threats. Joint research in think tanks and universities on cyber security topics will also be useful in adding value to this subject. In terms of counterterrorism, cybersecurity is also quite significant because this technology provides capability to monitor and eradicate the cyber channels and activities of anti-state actors, insurgents, and terrorists, which pose a common threat to both countries, particularly like Daesh, BLA, and BLF. I hope that both countries can cooperate in terms of denying the cyberspace to these spoilers, which are trying to harm the mutual interests of both the brotherly countries. In terms of cybercrime, I think identifying and punishing individuals and groups which are involved in cybercrimes, money laundering, data theft, privacy intrusion in each other's countries can also be considered. In terms of diplomatic cooperation, I think there is a lot of scope because Pakistan is one of the most prominent, proponents of developing an international multilateral cyber regime, which is unbiased, non-discriminatory, transparent, and effective. And perhaps both countries can collaborate and support each other's positions at forums like UNGA and the open-ended working group on ICT and information-related international issues. Moreover, I think I must emphasize that the support for global legal regime on ICT and information technology and cybersecurity is very critical, particularly from the developing world, because an international regime which can offer a suitable legal framework to equitably share the peaceful benefits of knowledge and cyber technology for the common benefits of the progress and prosperity of entire humanity on a non-discriminatory basis, and learning from the discriminatory and destabilizing impact of the earlier regimes has widened the divide between the haves and have-nots, which need to be bridged through a new regime. So in that context, allow me to underscore Pakistan's recent initiative on disinformation, both through online and offline medium, because the recent initiative by Pakistan based on the UNGA resolution that I earlier pointed out, and also the keynote address of Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari during the first meeting of Group of Friends on countering disinformation and protection for promotion and protection of human rights and fundamental freedom, which he delivered on 23rd June 2022 to help develop global human rights and fundamental freedom, is very important because it will help Pakistan and like-minded friendly countries like Iran and other developing countries, but particularly the Muslim world, to counter disinformation, Islamophobia, fake news, hate speech. That is very important. But not just that, Pakistan also presented a very elaborate plan of action to counter disinformation, particularly because Pakistan also suffered from a very hostile and large-scale global and extensive Indian disinformation campaign in the form of EU Disinfo Lab. And I think this experience is useful, and other countries should also benefit from it and support Pakistan's initiative to offer and enjoy cybersecurity in their own countries. So just to lastly, I flagged the 7 key elements of this plan of action that Pakistan Foreign Minister presented. Number 1, public awareness. Second, capacity building of member states by the United Nations. Number 3, building firewalls against false information. Number 4, ensuring transparency. Number 5, adhering to human rights norms and standards. Number 6, urging United Nations to develop rules, standards, and regulations for adherence by the private sector, social media companies, and non-governmental actors. Number 7, calling upon United Nations Secretary General to create an interagency task force on disinformation. And lastly, number 8, appointing a focal person for regular interactions with member states, private media, online companies, and other stakeholders. So to conclude, my dear friends and colleagues, in the cyber world, this has brought the humanity together, but it has also intensified our conflict of values and interests. So therefore, dialogue, engagement, and collaboration to promote responsible, fair, equitable, and transparent sharing and use of cyber technology, information, and knowledge for the common goal of progress, prosperity, and peace of entire mankind is essential. In order to learn from the costly and destabilizing mistakes based on the pursuit of monopoly and discriminatory exploitation of knowledge and technology for short-term geopolitical objectives. Therefore, Pakistan considers digital technologies as important for enabling socio-economic progress, facilitating good governance, enabling effective public service. Therefore, bridging the digital divide between the developed and developing countries is essential for global progress, achievement of Millennium Development Goals, good governance through fostering international cooperation, and also to enhance global and national objective of cybersecurity of all nation states. So in my last words are that technology has brought us together, but it is also providing states, non-state actors, and criminals to advance their agendas at the cost of the values and interests of other nations. Therefore, it is important that knowledge and technology should be responsibly managed and shared to benefit and protect all of us, not only some of us. I thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really a comprehensive and detailed presentation on not only the cyber security, but also the benefits that we can attain from cyber technology. And you have also talked about, in fact, you have also proposed about the joint ventures between Pakistan and Iran in not only socio-economic domain, but also in educational domain, in academic domain, and scientific domain as well. So we were supposed to have our second speaker for the second speech, but unfortunately he has not joined. So I believe we'll move straight towards the question answer session. So, sir, basically one thing that you mentioned earlier in your talk, that you proposed the idea of global cyber governance through the UN platform and other multilateral international platform. While specifically in the context of Middle East and the region which is conflict prone, do you think that in the Middle East such sort of cyber governance between the regional countries assisted by the global powers could be achieved? And if so, what could be the mechanism of that? And if not, what are the factors behind?
Thank you. A very important question, Prasa. I think it needs an incremental and simultaneous approach, not just at the bilateral level between like-minded states which have common concerns and common interests, but also at the global level, at the multilateral forums. Because like I earlier underscored, the very important and timely initiative proposed by Pakistan in terms of a framework for more responsible use of information. It is very important that we need to have a concerted approach at several levels simultaneously. It cannot be one size fit all, because at the global level, most international forums, unfortunately, the reality of international politics is are disproportionately influenced by great powers and major powers, and the developing countries sometimes are unable to ensure that any issue is resolved in a fair, equitable, and transparent manner. And the experience of the strategic arms controls treaties, like non-proliferation treaty and similar subsequent ideas like FMCT and CTBT, also indicate that the knowledge and technology, unfortunately, since the emergence of the post World War II world order, has not been equitably, fairly, and transparently shared between the developed world and the developing countries. So I think these are very valuable and costly lessons. Therefore, the developing countries must also rally together and build a common voice to increase their influence on the other major powers, to basically convince them that this technology is not only, it offers a lot of hope and opportunity, but also if it is exploited like other technologies to only harm other countries and exploit and dominate them, then this will not promote peace and progress at the global level.
So basically, there is a question from the audience, and they have asked that in the Middle East, it is not only Israel and Iran which are the cyber powers as per se, but many other regional countries have also developed the expertise in technological aspects. In this context, UAE is also having a technological advancement. So do you think that UAE advancement in cyber technology would be beneficial for Iran, or would it be a threat, another threat for Iranian security? Considering that UAE is also the part of Middle Eastern Quad as well.
Yes, I think it's an important question. I'll try to make your question. I'll try to respond to your question in an interesting manner, because you will recall that in my initial comments, I mentioned that cyber technology simultaneously influences politics, security, and economy. So while the geopolitics continues to influence how much technology is shared with other countries, what are the purposes for which it is weaponized or shared, and against whom and with whom, but also the economic dimension, incentivizes greater sharing of knowledge and experience for the common benefit. As I mentioned, IT industry is worth more than $1 trillion around the world. And a lot of Pakistani young entrepreneurs and startups are offering services around the world while sitting in their homes in Pakistan. Similarly, such IT professionals are sitting in India, in Iran, in China, in other countries, who are offering their knowledge, their skill, their services to the other countries. So what I'm saying is the traditional and classical way in which state could control the global interaction of its professionals and human resource is a challenge actually in the IT sector. But the state-funded, state-driven strategic projects in which cyber capabilities are weaponized and developed with a particular intent to harm, exploit, and disrupt the other adversaries' economic, technological, and military capabilities, then that is a separate ball game altogether. And unfortunately, that is a reality that our generation is facing. That while there may be not be a firing across LOC, but there may be a few thousand cyber attacks every day between India and Pakistan, which many people do not know, and press perhaps does not even bother to report about. So this is a perpetual phenomena, which is also afoot between Israel and Iran, between US and Iran. But Iran is also benefiting. It has done significant progress in the cyber domain, particularly because it has been a victim and of such attacks, such as Stuxnet against the Natanz facility, and also several other industries. So it is collaborating in this domain with China, with Russia, and other countries. And I think there are areas in which Pakistan can also share best practices to benefit from the experience of Iran.
Well, rightly so, sir. I also believe that although UAE is the part of Middle Eastern Quad, but in the recent bilateral relationship of UAE and Iran, they have also enhanced their economic cooperation as well as their joint exploration of gas and oil and all energy sector. So I believe that even if UAE has been able to advance its cyber security domain or cyber technological domain for that matter, it would more to be a sort of a collaborative partnership with Iran, and it could be instead of being a outrightly a threat to Iranian security.
But allow me, Frasab, to just add one point to your last comment. Since the emergence of Quad 2 and Abrahamic Accord, I think the geopolitical direction of UAE is primarily steered by its relationship with Washington. At the global level and at the regional level, we see growing security cooperation and economic cooperation between Israel, UAE, and India as well. And that also is a matter of concern for Pakistan. So I think we need some soul searching in that, to assess significance of these trends and take adequate and timely measures.
Rightly so, sir. My next question was specifically related to this statement of yours, and it was asked by one of our audience that after the Middle Eastern Quad, we have seen the resurgence of Iran-Israel shadow war inside the Middle East, and it has in fact emboldened Israel to take some drastic measures against Iranian security. For example, the killing of Iranian nuclear scientists, attacking the Iranian and nuclear facilities. So, do you think any possibility of a transformation of this shadow war into an all-out war? And even if such thing happens, what should be the domain of that all-out war? Would it be in the technological side? Would it be in a conventional side, or would it be through a proxy matters in different smaller states of the Middle East?
I think that's a very important question in the context of escalation dynamics between kinetic and non-kinetic warfare. It's a very intense and extensive debate that can cyber warfare escalate into the kinetic domain. Different countries have articulated their policies, doctrines, and strategies differently. For example, the US Cyber Command, considers a major cyber attack as just like any other kinetic attack, and it reserves the right to respond with all possible means available to the US, including the strategic means. And I expect that the impact and the nature and the significance of that non-kinetic attack will actually determine and influence the political decision whether to escalate beyond the non-kinetic domain and use some kinetic means to respond in kind. I think there is no one single model that all countries will follow. It depends upon situation to situation, scenario to scenario, and how that particular nation state has a particular threat perception vis-a-vis other countries. Because China and US have a very intense global, worldwide cyber war going on. Although US is economically, coercing or challenging China, but both are very careful to avoid any direct escalation through kinetic means, despite very aggressive and forward force postures that we are seeing in the Indo-Pacific region. Similarly, between Russia and US, you would recall there was a very popular debate that, and some senior officials also alleged in the US that Russia was involved in influencing the political outcome of the elections through cyber means. So these allegations are there, and I'm sure the intelligence agencies and strategic organizations of different countries continue to advance their interests and protect their strategic interests. But so far, we have not seen any incident which has led to escalation to the kinetic domain in which a cyber attack has been responded through some direct conventional or strategic response.
Rightly, sir. Sir, my one last question for you before the conclusion. You mentioned that in Middle Eastern Quad, there is India and Indo-Israel collaboration have basically increased. So considering that India has always posed a threat to Pakistan's security, while Israel is a threat to Iranian security, so do you think such sort of a counter nexus or counter partnership could be envisaged between Iran and Pakistan to counter Indo-Israeli nexus, not just in the cyber domain, but in an overall context?
I think it's a very important question. Pakistan, I think, has a very clear and long-standing policy that in the Muslim world, in any conflict, we prefer not to take sides. And that also allows Pakistan a superior diplomatic leverage to help diffuse the tensions and manage a crisis between two Muslim countries, rather than taking side of one against the another. Whether it was Iran-Iraq war or any other, I think it should be seen in that context. However, the recent Quad 2.0, which has allowed India to join some of the closest Pakistani friends in the Arab world, particularly UAE, because we are a very large diaspora is based there, and which is a source of significant economic remittances for Pakistan. And Pakistan, I'm sure, wants to maintain friendly, close, and mutually beneficial ties with UAE. However, I think in the cyber domain, as I earlier pointed out in my presentation, there are prospects on case-to-case basis in which Iran and Pakistan can consider and explore further collaboration for mutual benefit. Because Iran is facing cyber threat from Israel, and Pakistan is facing major cyber attacks frequently from India, and both of which have legal, formal security arrangements to build and develop and share their cyber capabilities, both offensive and defensive. So I think I'm sure there is some space for collaboration, but to immediately jump to the possibility of an alliance against this alliance may be, I think, premature at this stage.
Okay, sir, an audience just posed a question, and I think it is related to what we are discussing. That how difficult would it be for Iran to counter these cyber challenges under sanctions, and could it be the factor in sabotaging the ongoing Vienna talks? Because most of the cyber attacks or Iran are conducting on its nuclear sites. So could it provoke a reaction, an aggressive reaction from Iran that could sabotage the all process that has been going on in Vienna for the past many months?
It's an important question. Iran, in terms of its political or geopolitical objectives to deter its adversaries, has several instruments. It has different groups. It has non-kinetic capabilities. It has cyber capabilities, also developing cyber capabilities. But when it comes to the issue of you know, gaining international access to cyber technology, I think they have close collaboration with China and also some collaboration with Russia, both of which are not as sensitive to the US-led sanction regime against Iran as some of the Western allies of the US. So I think that is not really a major constraint on Iran, except the Western countries like Germany, France, and Britain, of course. But when it comes to the response aspect of Iran, I think Iranians are responding in the same cyber domain to both global and regional adversaries. And there are scores of reports in the American think tanks, in the British think tanks, in the Israeli think tanks that you can read, which give amicable coverage of the threat that they feel or face from the Iranian growing cyber capabilities. However, whether they want to escalate it into a kinetic domain through some conventional or strategic response, I think, again, as I earlier mentioned in response to one of the earlier questions, that will depend upon the Iranian leadership's own threat assessment, that how much damage that particular attack has actually caused. So it's not the means, it is the end which is important. Recently, their steel industry has received cyber attacks. I think more than 4,000 of their petrol pumps, their financial system was not available for 12 days. That was a major attack. So they do have asymmetrical means to, you know, respond to such attacks. But I do not think a direct conventional or strategic response in the foreseeable future, unless the scale and the impact of cyber attack is really of strategic significance and nature.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really an enlightening talk that we had, and the purpose of this topic was to analyze the cyber security and the emerging technologies in the Iranian context, in the Middle Eastern context. But you quite skillfully elaborated all these things, not from just a military point of view or a strategic point of view, but also from the socio-economic point of view. And you have also skillfully linked the Iranian cyber security with that of Pakistan cyber security, considering the Indo-Israeli nexus that has been emerging in the Middle East. And you have also highlighted, in fact, you have also proposed that how Pakistan could be helpful in diffusing such tensions or collaborating with Iran in the cyber domain. Obviously, there are some possibilities considering both Pakistan and Iran are aligned with China being a superpower, being a major power, if not if not a great power. So, having said that, sir, I thank you so much for your time and for your contribution to this topic. And hopefully, in the future, we'll remain in touch to invite you for further events. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was an honor. Thank you again to Firas Saab and also to Ambassador Riaz and IPS for giving me an opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care.